I'm Bob Schwartz, Harvard Graduate School of Education, here at the Education and Employers Conference back in the States. I co-lead a network of our states that came together in 2012 following up a report that I and two colleagues issued from Harvard called Pathways to Prosperity. The Pathways to Prosperity network is now in a very large and interesting mix of our states that together serve nearly half of young people in the U.S. And essentially what we're trying to do is bring the worlds of work and learning closer together, which has been a major theme here. Our focus tends to be on picking young people up in their early secondary school years and trying to move them through programs that combine strong academic education and strong technical education. We tend to focus on kind of preparing young people for high growth, high demand fields, information technology, healthcare, advanced manufacturing sectors where, at least in the US, there's continuing demand and growth, particularly for so-called middle-skilled jobs. Our strategy is to try to seamlessly connect high school programs and two-year post-secondary programs. The equivalent of the further education colleges in the UK are our community colleges. So it's high schools, community colleges, employers, and workforce organizations collaborating together region by region, since this work plays out at the regional labor market, to really try to create a much closer alignment between the demands of our economy and the preparation of young people to take part and really contribute to that economy. It's slow, system-changing work. It doesn't happen overnight, but we think we've made a quite good beginning, and where we feel that, as I say, the wind is at our back. There's lots more attention to the importance of combining work and learning for young people, and it's gratifying to be here at this conference and hear a lot of the same themes across various presenters from various parts, not only of the UK system, but there are other perspectives, international ones here as well. You know, I always say at home, there are a lot of people kind of always critical of the schools, why aren't the schools getting better, et cetera. My experience in the US is I think our schools are actually slowly getting better. The challenge is that the pace of change in the larger economy, the impact of technology, the impact of globalization is just much, much more rapid than the pace of change in our education institutions. And we've got to somehow figure out how to actually accelerate that change. And one argument for really creating a closer set of connections between schools and workplaces is that I think that can help the people who work in schools especially understand the importance of really preparing young people for change. I mean, for us, the issue isn't trying to make predictions about, slotting a young person at age 16 or 17 or 18 into a field and thinking that that's where the person is going to stay for, his or her entire working life. The world doesn't work that way anymore. This is really about giving people the underlying kind of professional skills as well as technical ones. And by professional skills, I mean the ability to adapt, to change, to innovate, to work in teams, to kind of think ahead and always be looking around the corner for the next thing. I mean, those are the skills that are really required in this labor market. So getting young people first safely through adolescence into the labor market with confidence, with experience, and with skills, and a kind of optimistic, I can do it kind of mindset. That's what we're really trying to aim at. And I think a lot of people still have in their heads a much older model that this is about vocational education only in a limited set of trades and crafts, and it's slotting people for the rest of their lives. That's a very different kind of model that we have. And one, Andreas Schleicher from OECD, who spoke here this morning, really kind of, I think, made a really compelling argument about this. Really is preparing people for their entire working lives. That is, we need to have this model that continuous education, learning, and growth, and we need to kind of start that in schools, but not think that it's going to end at the end of their formal education. It's a very, very different world that we're moving into, and the education institutions simply need to be able to adapt more quickly to it. The organization that I work most closely with is called Jobs for the Future. It's a 130-person non-governmental organization, been around for about 30 years. 2 weeks ago, Jobs for the Future had a big national conference on opportunity and mobility, and those are the issues for us. That is, we've got to figure out how to really use this combination of the education system, the workforce system, and access to employment to really help those young people who are kind of most stuck. I do think that one of the big lessons to be learned from the really strong European systems like Switzerland and Austria and Germany, though, is that we all labor under this problem of vocational education being seen as a wonderful thing for other people's children. In other words, there's always been this traditional kind of stigma, a sense that somehow this is second class. What those systems have done is really made this combination of work and learning the kind of mainstream system, not for other people's kids. These systems serve a very broad range of kids with broad range of academic abilities. And I think part of the strategy in the US, one of the things we've learned over the years is that programs that are targeted only for poor people, whether it's children or adults, tend to do much less well politically in generating support than programs that are more universal, but within a kind of universal strategy actually do have a very strong equity focus, and where the people at the bottom can actually benefit the most from them. And I do think that the way we're trying to frame the work that we do, this career pathway development, is to really argue that this can really serve all kids, but our special interest is really trying to make sure that it's the young people who most need this kind of help in getting launched in the labor market are kind of front and center in our view. I do think that we don't. This conference here is about employer engagement, and one of the things that I haven't heard people talk enough about is that part of the challenge, at least in the US, if you come to employers and you approach them out of a kind of social service or civic responsibility kind of argument, you can get a lot of them who are socially minded to be willing to take a chance on kids who really are most at risk. But if you talk to employers in these strong systems that really do combine work and learning, they're not at the table out of corporate social responsibility. That's not their primary motive. They really have come to understand this is about their own economic self-interest, that is, investing in young people is really preparing the next generation of their workforce. And they come at it sector by sector. So it's employers banding together, for example, in the IT world to say, how do we make sure that our sector gets its fair share of the talent pool among young people? So they band together, support these programs, that because they have a kind of national qualification system, they can be pretty confident that whether or not I've trained the person, I may have lost the person I trained, but there's somebody coming along who, because he or she has had to meet the same set of standards, that person will be just as effective in my company. But the point is, they've come to see this, again, primarily as they're at the table because this is about their future workforce, and that's a really important motive. And somehow, we've got to, at least in our country, and I think in the UK, kind of shift the conversation with employers to help them see that we're not asking for charity here. We're not saying, please, please, please come help us educators. We're saying, come to the table, take the lead on this. We need a demand-driven system because ultimately, at the end of the day, this is going to serve your interests and the larger societal interests, not just the interests of the education community and getting some kids who are on the margins through the end of compulsory education.